Department of Homeland Security admits that they are investigating terrorist activity in all 50 states of the USA. They have also admitted that they are collecting data on every American. That is called domestic surveillance, and it is illegal. Just as a reminder, the DHS presumably has up-to-the-minute data on every person in the United States. They have your phone data and recordings of all your calls. They have all your credit card data, GPS data, utility meter data, computer activity data down to the keystroke. Wherever they may be, every American can be located within 1 day by DHS. That includes people who are hiding. If you have GPS or a smartphone, you can be located in 15 seconds. If you are carrying a smartphone, you are not hiding. But they're not just watching, they're recording. DHS can see everything you have done for the past 5 years with full identity, time, and location data. How is it possible, with the mass surveillance our government is conducting, for terrorism to exist in any form? No police state in history has collected as much data as DHS or NSA or CIA. The government has enough data to apprehend you for jaywalking within 5 minutes after you commit the crime. Something does not add up here. How could there be any threat of terrorism whatsoever when government has all this data and when they spend trillions of dollars on counterterrorism programs, agencies, personnel, and materials? How can anything larger than a flea get through that filter? While the DHS has complete up-to-the-minute data on everything you do, as Edward Snowden let us know and as our security agencies now admit, then how much extra data does our government collect on people who actually profile as terrorists? Imagine that. If you're a terrorist, the DHS must know the color of your upper colon. I would imagine a suspected terrorist would not dare purchase explosives, would not dare tweet about his thoughts and feelings, would not have the slightest anti-American thought, could not walk into a hardware store without DHS having hard evidence of that within 30 seconds. That is exactly what all this surveillance is supposed to be for. When terrorists start setting up an event, the patterns of data must be screaming out terrorism across the computer screens of every security agency in the USA. If every American is under high-resolution mass surveillance, then what kind of surveillance are suspected terrorists under? If you're concerned about being caught for saying something careless on your smartphone or being suspected as a terrorist for some offhanded comment you made in an email or Facebook, if you think the heat is on you that much, how much heat would be on a suspected terrorist with the resources that our spy agencies have at their disposal? With that much heat, how could any terrorist come within 5 miles of committing a terrorist act without DHS having 25 black helicopters circling his Toyota Corolla? So DHS is telling us their intel is awesome and massive, while at the same time telling us that the terrorists are always just out of reach, off in the shadows, and only with more funding, more power, more decimation of rights and freedoms, only with more surveillance data can we expose and thwart the awesome terrorist who grew up on a goat farm, never learned to read, and thinks that virgins are waiting for him in heaven. You wouldn't be kidding us just to get more funding, would you? It's very obvious that our security apparatus can and has defeated all the terrorism they want to defeat. But they dare not defeat all terrorism. They dare not appear to have the upper hand on terrorism. Budget cuts would be sure to follow. A security agency must allow, even promote, just the right amount of terrorism, just that certain amount that will maximize funding for security agencies and maximize fear on the part of the public so they will fork over the taxes. They have to make sure an occasional truck plows through a crowd of people, an occasional airport is bombed, an occasional lone shooter takes out 6 or 7 innocent bystanders. This must happen. They even have to make sure some terrorists are not Muslims, so you and I will believe that the enemy is everywhere. Sometimes it's homegrown. It might be some constitutionalist, maybe even your next-door neighbor. Make sure you report anything suspicious so that we know we have thoroughly brainwashed you into our brand of paranoia. The security agencies must have a particular volume and stream of terrifying events, so most people will feel there is actually some chance they will become a victim of terrorism. It's critical. Of course, It's not all about stopping terrorism. It's about getting funding for stopping terrorism. They will never actually stop terrorism because they know that once they do that, there will be no more funding. You're being played. Are you afraid of terrorists? Do you think we need mass surveillance? Do you think we need multi-billion-dollar data centers? Do you think that a third of our government needs to operate in complete secrecy? You are being played. We have enough surveillance and counterterrorism programs and agencies to stop any terrorism we want. We are done. It is over. From this point on, any more money we spend, any more agencies we build, any more data we collect is a total waste of time. Absolute waste. In fact, at this point, we are probably at overkill by a factor of 3. Any security agency head who fails to prevent terrorism now should have his forehead tattooed with the word loser and be put to work on the front counter of the DMV. We need to let our security agencies know, you've got all of my private data you need. You've got all of the microwave weapons and mind control programs you need. You've got all the militarized police, FEMA camps, torture renditions that you need. You are done. Hunker down, keep it together, and get the hell out of my life. I'm talking about you, DHS Secretary John Kelly. Stop making speeches to scare people. That is not your job. Suck it up and go catch a terrorist. If you are spying on me, you are spying on them. Go get them and leave me alone. When you spy on people who you know are not terrorists, that makes you a creep. Is that a civil service pay category, creep services? I don't think so. In early 2017, John Kelly, DHS Secretary, went over to George Washington University and made a speech with the naive jive that terrorists hate us for our freedoms. When did any terrorist say they hated our freedoms? They love our freedoms. As far as I can tell, they hate us because we are not Muslims. That should make them pretty easy to spot. So what is the problem, John Kelly? When you say that terrorists are hard to spot, but you are collecting enough data to know when I turn on my bathroom heater, that makes you look really, really stupid. You are obviously looking at everybody. That means you are looking at the terrorists. And if you care to parse your data, you know exactly where they are and what they're doing all the time. By focusing on the status of my bathroom heater, you appear to be off mission slightly. Every terrorist, whoever terrorized, sent signals to our security agencies for months before they started killing people. If Dick Cheney had let our jets scramble, we would still have our Twin Towers. Why was Cheney running interference for terrorists? Actually, that says a lot, doesn't it? So, John Kelly, I heard your speech at George Washington University. It sounded like you were terrified by terrorists. It sounded like you are more afraid of them than I am. If I had your data, your intel, your army of mercenaries, your weapons, your budget, I wouldn't be afraid of anything. I would go out and get some serious terrorist nabbing done, and I would tell the American people they could now freely live their lives, and they would no longer have to duck, cover, and get their junk felt up at the airport. So, Mr. Kelly, are you really so afraid, or are you not really afraid and just lying to us? Because I don't think someone who is afraid or who is a liar should be in charge of the DHS. No one in history has been given more resources to get bad guys than you have been given. For instance, Verizon, AT&T, Google, and Facebook are giving you more than you need. Stop making speeches. Stop telling us how afraid you are. Stop begging for more money. Go out and get the terrorists.